may as well get kick-started. So, hi everyone, I'm Lilia from Territory 3 Kiwi Landing Pad Reimagined, and we help support Kiwi founders who are going global. As part of this, we hold a webinar series with weekly guest speakers, often founders who are a little further along in their journey, kind of been there, done that, or sometimes early stage founders as well, which is really cool to hear stories as they happen, and also some industry experts. And today, super excited to be chatting to Steven and India Korner, if that's right, from Method Recycling. And I'd say most people in New Zealand, you've probably seen these, I describe them as long rectangular bins where there's red, there's yellow, there's green, and they're for different types of recycling and one for landfill, and they're all over the place now. And so that's what these guys have created and expanded over the world with, but mainly started here in New Zealand, here in Wellington actually, which is super cool. I'd love to pass over to you guys to do just a bit of a background on the early days. How did you get involved in entrepreneurship, and what kind of sparked this for you?
Well, obviously a husband and wife team. So we to sort of rewind a wee bit, like we both had, good corporate kind of jobs. I was in product design, Fisher and Paykel Healthcare, got to travel the world by visiting hospitals and understanding how products were being used, and just that really good design kind of process and how you design really good products. So I had a really good background kind of there.
And I was in, I studied graphic design, but then I decided to go into property. So I was in commercial leasing. So that was good in two respects, in that you're all on commission only. So it's kind of like having your own business anyway, because you're not getting that regular paycheck. And secondly, really understood the process of companies leasing a space that could be a concrete shell, and what they would spend on desks and furniture and the fit out to resonate with their brand and their workplace, and then also the emergence of green buildings, which was really interesting. Yeah,
so it's sort of a combination of our two skill sets. We realize, that there's something quite complementary that we kind of have here, and we always kind of wanted to have a business kind of together. And it all came about that we ended up buying this little business, which was literally driving around the van selling wheelie bins out the back of it around New Zealand. And it was a pretty humble beginning, but we kind of realized it was an industry that was having a lot more awareness in the community around waste, and also it was an industry that had no design thinking in it whatsoever. So we thought, well, this is an area that our skill sets could actually have some really good impact kind of with. And we had young children at that point as well, and we're kind of one and then two that came along, and we're just like, we want to have a business that can actually improve things for their future as well. So there's a combination of all those kind of things that kind of led to us thinking about method and about where we could have the biggest impact. And some of our customers that were kind of dealing with that first business, we kind of realized we could really actually improve and impact them. And that's when we got sort of going with actually creating method. And we ended up selling that original business and just like full-time method from there on. Yeah,
awesome. And how did you initially kick off? Was it self-funded? And how did you go about designing the product? So I'm assuming you guys did that yourself in terms of designing the actual bins, right? And
we actually got a lot of help from a great industrial designer for that part of the process, because I was a graphic designer and Steve's like an engineer, so he understands about designing the tool, from the design and then injection molding into that. But we were heavily involved because we knew the aesthetic we really wanted and that kind of thing. So we were, although we didn't do it quite 100% ourselves, we feel like we led the process because we wanted a premium product. We wanted it to really look good and be visible to be effective. So
and I think we pretty much big borrowed and stealed for that first part. We literally we're living off the smell of an oily rag. We're living in Masterton and just had really low outgoing kind of costs, and we managed to get a little bit of help that we're very fortunate to have had to sort of get that little bit of investment really small investment to get the tooling kind of done. But we literally just bootstrapped and just tried to do as much as we can and try and get as much customer funding as possible. And we managed to when we went through that design process, we went through with some really cool customers like Trade Me and PwC in Wellington here, my old employer, Fisher and Paykel Healthcare, and really try to understand what we're actually designing for. Because I think typically bins are just something that people make without any design thinking, and it's just like a bit of a filler in a production schedule. Versus for us, we want to actually have something that was actually going to actually have an impact, people are actually going to be proud of, and be able to develop a brand around. So we sort of, with this process we went through with those customers, we sort of fleshed out all those insights. And I literally wanted to walk in customers' footsteps. So I did overnight cleaning shifts to sort of see how cleaners are interacting with the product. Went and visited as many waste transfer stations as I could, just to really understand the problem. And from that, we were able to actually develop what a really good design brief was. We had Lucy come on board to help us with translating that through into what the product was. And then those first initial people we went to ended up becoming our first customers, and we pre-sold our first production run, which is an amazing thing to be able to do, that you're able to actually fund that first obviously investment around the production equipment, but then the customers fund that first production run to be able to then produce it and then to be able to sell, if that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. That is a great way to kind of bootstrap. It's like getting pre-revenue, getting customers to give you the cash before giving the product over. But that's great, and it all worked out well. So would you say,
well, we had this prototype, I remember, and looking back, I think it cost like $7,000 to make this one bin, which was going to look how the injection molded bins would look. But it was like we knew the injection molded bins wouldn't be ready for 3 or 4 months. So we literally had that one bin to sell like customers, 300 or 400 bins off, or 50 bins off. And it looked almost identical, but it was a really weird feeling of like, oh, hopefully all Steve's engineering pans out and they do come out looking like this 3D printed bin, or however it was made. But it was like so expensive, and we've still got it somewhere. Steve?
Yeah. It was literally glued together. Like it's quite an intricate thing, but yeah, it pretty much looked like what it was going to be like at the end. And we took that everywhere. Like it was on planes, it was on trains, it was on buses, it was, we just took it everywhere with us.
I'm sure that would have got a few different looks.
Yeah.
No, that's super awesome. And in terms of manufacturing, so was that offshore or New Zealand, and how did you go about finding, the right place to actually physically make them?
That's a good question. We sourced the production equipment in China, and then we brought it back to New Zealand. We had some false starts there in terms of our production partners, and it was probably one of the harder kind of periods. Like that first production runs are really hard, and I was literally babysitting the production line from 6 a.m. to midnight to be able to ensure that it was working properly. And it's probably the most stressful part, or one of the most stressful parts. I literally cracked 6 of my teeth from grinding at night from the stress of it all. And founder welfare is obviously a big thing, and it wasn't so big back then, but like literally it was a really tough part of our journey. But we got through it, got those first runs on the board, and then we ended up moving to our production partners that we have at the moment. So we've got one down in Christchurch that does some molding for us, and one in Wanganui as well. And we've actually managed to develop a network of also the way that we source our plastics as well that feed into those factories. So pumps and city collection has been amazing. We get all their ice cream and yogurt containers out of their collection, which then grind down, and we make our product out of that post-consumer recycled content.
That's kind of funny. It's like a full circle. People give you their recycling, and then you use the recycling in order to make the bins. That's pretty cool. I love that.
Yeah, it's been part of our brand, and we might go into it later, but B Corp's been a big part of who we are and the kind of things we do, and we really try and push the envelope and be responsible with the materials we use.
True. Yeah, super cool. And I know, so like with the bins, there's obviously a range of different types of bins. So did you start with just the recycling bin and then you expanded, or what was the thinking behind? So I know there's like the landfill one now, and there's was it paper
Yeah, we've got a variety of lid types for the different waste streams. So we want to be able to, like some of our customers have up to like 7 streams of different things they're kind of collecting. If I'm looking at our ones that are just outside our meeting room here, we do everything from our Tetra Paks right through to all the steel lids for drink bottles and things, through to obviously batteries, and then all your kind of common waste types and stuff in between that too. So we just try and, if our customers are, some of them really motivated customers will have a variety of different types of waste that they'll collect, and then have different, obviously, ways that will then feed through into the recycling industry.
So the modular design, like, it was very important for us because we knew streams could change depending on the future of councils and how they took the waste and how motivated customers were. And we had seen through our previous role, corporate offices building in 2 bins or 3 bins to a kitchen, but then Wellington City Council says we're going to take glass separately now. And so they've got 1 bin outside of the cupboard and 3 bins in the cupboard. And yeah, we just wanted a very modular, adaptable system for many reasons. And, even some places in the office, you can fit a lot of bins, and other places you can only fit a couple. So we really saw that as being part of the key success to the solution, was something that could adapt to a customer's needs.
Yeah, true. I think I love that. It's almost like the more you have, the easier it is to recycle, because I know it can be so confusing. You see the recycling bin and you're not sure if what you're holding is meant to go in there or not, and it can be very confusing. So having more options it does make it a little bit easier. So I do appreciate it when there are quite a few options to make yourself feel a little better, like you're doing a little bit more for the planet, which is awesome. So what kind of challenges did you face whilst starting out and whilst growing?
I think quite a few sort of at different times. Sometimes I feel like we've tried to do, too much too soon, because we have been bootstrapped as a business. So I think that's key. Like, we ended up, going into the Australian market because, we had some good customers coming out of Australia, and we were servicing them by flying in, flying out to Australia, and then we did the UK. So I think, as a small business, especially if you're bootstrapped, to maybe really do things well before jumping on too much stuff. I think that would be, because things seem tempting, and it seems, even things like the amount of SKUs we developed, or in the early days, the customization we would do for customers. But when you look at it, a year later or 2 years later, we had to rein that in terms of the streams we were producing and that sort of thing. You learn, a lot of things on the way to sort of refine your process. Things are better for, if like you're holding physical product in 3 markets, lots of things.
That financial part of actually having physical products is quite big in terms of inventory cost and how you optimize that. And we've managed to bring on a really amazing head of operations, and he really, as India said, like, reduce the SKUs but make it more adaptable to our market, so then we don't have to hold as much stock. It's a big working capital cost for us, and how you kind of fund that and ensure that when you spend $1 to make a product, and when you get that $1 back, try and make that as fast as possible.
Now, obviously, we're having challenges with shipping because we ship to the UK and to Australia. But in time, we probably will replicate our tooling and produce in the UK market for that side of the world. So, but also having remote staff and remote teams, that's, quite challenging, trying to grow from New Zealand. We've just been through COVID, so that's definitely been challenging because we sell mainly to offices. So that was a very, very hard time for us during that period. Like, sales dropped by like 25% that year, and every other year we'd grow year on year. So that brought really tricky things, like we had to make redundancies, and I think that's probably one of the hardest periods that we've had in the business.
I think a lot of businesses did go through that period where you just have to accept, you got to lose a few people in the process in order to keep the company going in the long term. And then, obviously things do pick up and maybe you can rehire them back. And but definitely tough times in the industry for a lot of people. Kind of curious to step back in terms of your team. So when you guys started off, it was just you two, and you said you had an industrial designer as well. Help out. At what point did you start bringing other people on board, and what kind of roles were those people, and how did you what was your rate of scaling in terms of having staff and staff around the world?
It was probably quite slow looking back, I guess, because we are bootstrapped. I remember the first person we brought on was like a general support admin person to help us just to process the orders and all of those things. And then our second hire was amazing, Josephine, who still works for us today. And she came on as a New Zealand BDM. And I think we had hired those 2 people I mean, I think we might have had revenue of like, maybe even $1 million or close to $1 million before we brought our first support person on. It's hard looking back, it all sort of merges into one. And then from there, we started to grow, a bit more quickly. It was sort of 2-3 years in that we identified a new product that we're working on at the moment. So we started to bring on more of a research team. But after Joe, then we would have brought on more in this.
More on the support sort of side.
Actually.
But I think like the tricky thing is obviously trying to hire and market. So we Australia was our main market that we're going after to start off with. Like we had a dream first customer, Atlassian is your first customer in Australia. You couldn't have asked for a better sort of customer to be able to hang your hat on. And when you go into sales calls and you say, quite often the question is, where else could I see these in Australia? So, well, Atlassian's our biggest customer, and they love us, and this is what we'll kind of achieve with them. So it gave us that credibility. And then from that, we're able to then think, well, actually, like we can scale this market, and we've hired salespeople and stuff in Aussie, which we've that's our biggest market now. So it is tricky that probably the remote salespeople are probably the toughest part. But once you get it right, like they just like have ownership over it, and that's kind of what the Aussie team are like. They feel they own that business themselves and just make hustle and try and make the connections they need to get to the right people to make those sales and stuff. So we've been fortunate that we've brought some great people along.
Yeah, cool. So how many different countries have you got your product in at the moment?
So Australia, New Zealand, Australia, and the UK are where we've got boots on the ground. We had a very similar story for the UK. Our first customer there was Fossers and Partners, which is an architecture firm that have done like the Gherkin Millennium Bridge. They did the Apple campus. They do all the Apple stores around the world. So really high profile architect. And Sir Norman Foster chose our product to go in his studio in London. And that just gave us that credibility again to be able to then, when we have those sales calls there, that that if we can meet the Foster's standard, we can, we can sell to everyone. And from there, we've had a bit of a dream run in terms of the kind of customers, Alexander McQueen and Chanel and Canary Wharf and just to name a few. So we've got a dream list of customers that we've kind of managed to get them behind us, and some real great advocates.
Yeah, awesome. And how did you find the uptake? I'm curious, between say New Zealand, Australia, and the UK, has there been a different mindset in terms of the whole like we need to recycle kind of thing? I'm just curious, have you seen differences?
I think when we first entered the UK market, we found it really tricky to understand the colorways and the streams, because compared to New Zealand and Australia, there's much less standardization around councils and different areas in the UK. That was probably one of the main changes and challenges we faced. We've always had a bit of an outward to begin with in markets, like getting in contact with customers when we knew they were moving and try and selling to them at relevant points, versus in the early days we didn't rely on heaps of marketing leads coming into us, so we were a little slower to build the marketing and getting the leads coming in. So in a way, that's also been a challenge as we scale to try and develop it more inbound inquiries coming in. But what other challenges have we faced? I'm trying to
like
Australia is like similar to New Zealand. I think obviously Australia and the UK are just so much bigger in terms of the offices and the number of people and the number of bins they have and that kind of thing. Getting into new builds was quite good, but then there is a lead time, so it might not be 6 or 12 months before the office will be fitted out and they need the product. But too many
like logistics and things is obviously really hard in the world at the moment, and we've got a new product coming out, and like the supply chain for electronics and stuff is really difficult. Things that we used to cost us $1 and now costing us $24 for some electronic components. So that's been pretty tricky to navigate that part as well.
It's a big increase. Are you keen to talk on the new products?
We can give you a general general view of
we know it's got electronics in it.
So we're wanting to collect data in terms of what waste has actually been generated within spaces, and So we're doing that for a couple of big customers at the moment, which are our sort of early adopter kind of customers, to be able to prove the model and things. And then we're going to, as the year goes on, we'll start to publicize and stuff what it is. But yeah, it's a way to measure what's happening, and then people can report on it. People can actually try and make improvements and see how that shifts the needle in terms of data. But we're really wanting to tie our success as a company with our customer success and be able to get them to that net zero waste target that they're trying to aim for. And it kind of means for us that we're actually utilizing our expertise and skill sets a lot better and having a long-term relationship with customers. So,
and we just felt there were so many manual processes happening out there, just for some of the large corporates that wanted to do this, that we've thought of a much better, more efficient, hopefully more cost-effective way for businesses to do it. So,
you know, like people are trying to understand what their carbon, you know, their carbon numbers are, and waste is a part of that as well. You know, the rise of smart buildings and how data flow fits into smart buildings. So we're really trying to fit into that, the new way that waste is going to be fitting into the new world.
So it's kind of like IoT for bins, you could think of it as, but I'm sure we can send you the video and you can share it with your.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, to see what that looks like. That's cool. And so far you've been mainly bootstrapped, apart from a little bit of investment, early days. I know you mentioned at some point there was a competition that you won.
Yes, yeah,
as well. With any other things in terms of that, that you know, that kind of did just surprisingly helped you along the journey.
Yeah, so there was the Westpac growth grant that we won. So I think we were only in our second year in business, and I remember working in the Biz Dojo in Wellington, and we flew up to Auckland, and first of all, we had to do the submission and everything, and we got through to the finals, and then there were 5 businesses. So we pitched, you know, our business, and we won $50,000 for the company. So that was amazing. At that point, like I think we were just starting some of the Australian sales. So as Steve said before, it sort of bought us some Australian stock to then go and sell. And then
the businesses that were going up against for that were like 10 times the size of us, you know, like we were just this little husband and wife team. But, you know, we practiced our pitch, and we had it down packed, and we pulled it off. And I just remember one thing is Michael Barnett, he was the Auckland Chamber of Commerce, and he asked, you know, it seems like you got design kind of right. You know, what about sales? And you just fired up. I've done sales, eat what you kill, you know, commission only, you know, and just really showed hunger. And everyone was like, whoa, you know, she has got drive. And we made a bit of a joke of it afterwards. But like, we managed to win against these big businesses, and that was an amazing kind of moment of Method's journey that gave us that money to buy stock to be able to get into Aussie. So
super cool.
So other than that, we bootstrapped, and then we're thinking about going for investment sort of before COVID, and then COVID reared its head, so we just needed to sort of maintain and keep existing, I guess. And then we did go for our first investment round in April, so it's mainly confidential, but we've got a good injection of money into the business, but largely around this new product we're developing and have been developing for 4 years, and just to be able to hire more people and more salespeople and markets and expand in Australia and the UK. So we sold 15% of our business in April, I guess. Well, got investment 15%. So that's another milestone.
Congrats on the investment. How do you find being a Wellington-based company? I guess, you know, New Zealand's we are a bit secluded from the rest of the world, but it is still possible, you know, to expand overseas from New Zealand. So it's always cool to hear, like, so you mentioned like you were in the Biz Dojo, and I remember Biz Dojo was really buzzing back in those days. Maybe that's how I saw your bins quite in the early days, actually. It's probably where I saw them. But have you chosen Wellington as, you know, your long-term base, and would you see yourself heading overseas at some point, or what do you find in terms of location for you guys?
I think like we've been asked that question a few times. It's like, why aren't you living in Sydney? Why aren't you living in London, where, you know, your big growth markets kind of are? Because but we're like, you know, we love Wellington. We trust our team in those markets will execute well, and we'll support them as much as we can. But, you know, Wellington's got it's a great place to kind of live. We've got a couple of young kids. They just walk to the bus stop and get the bus to school. We can walk to work. You know, it's got a lot of benefits in terms of lifestyle, but it has got like some really cool kind of businesses that you can kind of leverage off. You know, we're really friendly with Good Nature, the Possum Trap company, and they've got a very similar journey to us. Formway, and then increasingly more in the kind of the software kind of space, and there's a really cool bunch of businesses we can leverage off and learn from. So no, we don't think it's an inhibitor being in Wellington. Like, I think it's obviously got cool people that live here, so we've got cool people we can employ. So we love it.
Yeah, cool. It's a great little city. It's quite a nice place to be. It's awesome. What has the hardest part of your journey been so far?
I think it's always a challenge, husband and wife. So yeah, that can be a challenge at sometimes. And a few years ago, we sort of decided, like, I was working full time, and I think our boys were maybe 6 and 4. So we just decided to readjust things a bit. And now I do like just a few less hours and pick up the kids from school, whereas before we had a nanny. So I think it's always like just checking in for the different stages. I did need to work full time up until that stage, but then we got to a point where we could hire, more staff. So it's always just checking in for where you're at, and if that's because you have to enjoy. Everyone says you have to enjoy the journey as well. Because if it's not working for you each day, each year, then that's not going to put you in the best space either. So I think, but there's also COVID and all those challenges we mentioned. That was, very trying sort of time. We definitely know to keep some revenue aside now for unforeseen events and businesses and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed something like that doesn't happen again anytime soon. But again, it's better to be prepared than to not. So it's cool. Because I know we did talk a bit about founder wellbeing before. So have you've incorporated more practices into your lifestyle to kind of find that work-life balance?
We have a very cute dog called Wilbur. He comes into the office, but he also needs to be walked every morning. So I really, just this year I've decided, okay, the boys are old enough, so Steve can go out for a run and I can walk the dog at the same time. So getting up at 6:15, whatever, and taking him for a good walk just to start the day. And also we've got our kids, they're 10 and 8-year-old boys. So, you have to be out taking them to soccer and doing all these different things. You just can't be on the business 100%. So that's a naturally enforced break, having children and all the things that entails as well.
Yeah, and I think we made this active decision, like, we've only got kids for a really short period of our lives. We want to actually enjoy having kids and not just be working constantly. And that period where they're before school and stuff, like, it's so precious. And then obviously just being able to spend that time and see all those milestones, and would hate to have missed it because we're sort of in the office working the entire time. So that's kind of been part of it. But I mean, just self-care is so important, and being able to decompress each day, and it is really important. So little moments of playing Uno with your kids at night before they go to bed, or having a spa where there's no devices when you're in a spa and stuff, and being able to chat to them. All those kind of moments are quite precious to actually be able to decompress after working.
And we have amazing grandparents on both sides who have been great at looking after the boys when we've been overseas for a couple of weeks or, a few days and all that. So we couldn't ask for more in terms of the help they give us. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. It sounds like you've got a good kind of work-life balance going on there, and definitely family first. Second, usually. I mean, it kind of depends on personal preferences, but I'd say usually is that the best way to go. I'm just curious, in terms of the space, have you had any competitors pop up, and are there markets where it might be harder to get into now if someone has, I don't know, copied what you've done? Or what have you kind of seen happen after you've kind of launched out in the world?
So Australia, we were at a trade show, I think our first main trade show, and there was a big guy there that owned a cleaning company, and pretty soon after, his eco bins, he did a cheaper version of our product. So we have been copied a bit, and there's definitely more competition in Australia and in the UK, but like the Australian example, I just don't think they took the time to do the research and the design and really understand all the intricacies that we sort of put into our product around how the line is hidden from view and the usability and things of it. So I think they just haven't been
They haven't been executed very well. We have had some occurrences where people have tried to copy some of our design features and things that we've had, and we have got IP protection on those. you know, quite often it just needs a phone call and saying, hey, I don't want to you know, to call you out and stuff, but you know, like you are, that feature is actually like patented by us. I know it works really well, and I know why you want to do it, but like, you know, it is a commercial property. I mean, intellectual property ownership from us. So,
and you just have to keep moving forward. So, you know, refining elements of the design, and I guess that's why we're doing our new, you know, more IoT product as well, is just to keep moving ahead in that space, because people can always come after you and copy you, but you need a strong brand and you need a great product, and you need to keep moving forward to be ahead of the competition. So.
Yeah, definitely. And do you feel like, having created a product that encourages recycling, have you seen anything else happen in a similar space in terms of encouraging more of that in those kind of markets that you see when you go out there and expand? Like any other products being made that are in a similar, you know, kind of
well, yeah, like there is a fair bit of innovation happening within that waste kind of space. We do have a collaboration with a company that comes from Vancouver, and they've got like some technology where you put the item in front of a camera, and then it's got a screen which then tells you which bin to put it in. So we've done some work and stuff with them, and we did one major customer in London, which was Visa. And then we did like our first collab trade show with them a couple of weeks ago. But like, I think in general though, like there's a lot of physical products that are moving more digitally in terms of the way that they're functioning and actually being able to show the impact they're kind of having. You know, Good Nature's another example where they've got like something where you can actually determine when the trap's gone off and measure kind of like the impact that it's kind of having. And then to think about, well, what does it mean from a community perspective? Like we'd love for our product to be like the source of truth around what the community is doing around waste and how we can leverage that community aspect. And Good Nature's done a very similar thing with the heat mapping of who's got, not specifically who's got traps or where traps are, and trying to boost that coverage across all of the you know, the territories and stuff and things. So yeah, it's a really exciting that the world's kind of shifting in that direction. And we're just you know, trying to get on that pathway as well to be able to actually measure our impact and improve our customers where they're trying to get to.
Yeah, almost like in buildings, they measure electricity usage and energy and things like that. And we feel like waste has been a bit, and recycling has been left behind. So we'd like to address that.
Yeah, definitely. I know, yeah, the amount of waste that is out there in landfill is insane, and definitely something that the whole world needs to look into and try to improve on. Otherwise a bit of a downhill story from if we can't make a change. Not great for the climate either. Just for those tuning in at the moment, we are keen to take any questions. If you have any questions about method recycling or the journey, there should be a Q&A box on your screen. So if there are any questions that you have, do chuck those in there now, and we'll get to them. And then I've got a couple more points here that I was keen to chat on. Here's a good one. Okay, if you started from scratch, what would you do differently, if anything?
That's tricky.
I think when we first started, like our ambition probably not was pretty low in terms of what we were wanting to achieve with this business. I think if we sort of started with a different mindset and things around what this business could possibly be, you know, I think we would have maybe changed some different kind of directions, because it's sort of it naturally kind of just evolved what it is. Versus I think if we'd sort of had that vision piece really nailed down from the start, we might have made some different decisions in the way through. So that that's probably the main thing from my perspective.
I think we're still happy with the decision we took, because you were mentioning before, not many companies bootstrap, and I think that was really valid. And I feel you're always reading in the paper about companies, you know, getting more investment and another round of investment and more investment. And I think, there are alternative ways to do it, to bootstrap, to get to a certain value and then look for investment. So I don't know that we would change like that aspect of it. But yeah, sometimes we should have made some more senior hires sooner and things like that, I think, or, you know, gone for a bit more of a senior hire for some roles than we did. But you live and learn.
Actually, on that point, did you have mentors starting out, or do you have an advisory board? And who kind of helped you, guide you on the journey of growth?
Yeah, quite early on, we developed an advisory board. And so a few people we knew, including Richard Cupfield, was amazing. And just we're like a sounding board for, what we were doing. And we would have like, a meeting every two or 3 months just to check we were kind of on the right direction. And then obviously with getting investment in April, we've now got a formal board with directors.
Cool.
Yeah, we were so lucky, like Richard, he was chairman of Methvin, heavily involved with Formway, and just really knew industrial design products and how to take them to market. And he would turn up at our house when we were sort of thinking about distributors, and like have calls at 9 o'clock at night to Europe and stuff. Like, so he, we owe him a great debt of gratitude for helping us navigate those early years.
Cool. Yeah, it's awesome. Always good to kind of have someone just to be there to support and kind of give a different perspective when needed. And a random question I just thought of, do you know how many bins you have out there at the moment?
It's a good question. So one way to kind of answer that is that we've used about 100 ton of yogurt and ice cream containers to make our product. So I think in terms of our numbers, we're looking at we've got about 100,000 bins that are kind of out there in all shapes and forms
across the UK and Australia as well.
Yeah, it might be a little bit more, it might be a little bit less, but roughly around.
We haven't calculated the numbers for a while.
Yeah,
that's cool. 100,000. That's a big solid number. That's amazing. That's incredible. And how long is the lifespan of the bins? Like, are people expected to replace them at some point, or is it a forever product?
Yes, that's a good question. So no, we've got a 3-year warranty kind of with it, but like we'd like to hope that they'd last a lot longer.
Yeah, sure.
We do have a product stewardship scheme, so if customers have products that it's the end of life, we'll take it back, rechip the plastic and reuse the plastic again to make more bins. So we really, as I said before, we've been really mindful of our material use and making sure that we've got a full life solution for those. Part of that is it's been quite logistically quite tricky though in overseas markets as part of it, but we think that it's pretty critical that that's the brand of who we are, and we take responsibility of those kind of things.
Yeah, that's cool. It's kind of like, it's like a full circle of, you collect the recycling, you use it, and then even your bins can be recycled back into themselves. That's really cool. I love that. That's what more products need to be like, and hopefully we will see that happen in the future. But it's good that you guys can kind of be leaders in that space and inspire others. So it's super cool. I was going to ask what's next in your journey, and I know you've just raised some capital, you're working on the new products. Is that kind of all all hands on deck from now onwards for a while? What's that kind of going to look like?
Yeah, no, we're hustling hard for the next 6 months around that new product. We've got these 2 amazing big first customers that we're working with around that, and deployed in their offices in Australia and New Zealand. So we're really trying to bring that product to life and to really be able to get more and more customers on it. We're still, at an early kind of stage yet, and ensuring that we've got the supply chain, ensuring that we have got all the aspects of the tech working well before we sort of really go fully kind of on it. We're really keen to keep boosting our overseas sales site. We think that the growth for Method is in Australia and the UK. Probably just concentrating on those 2 markets. We have got customers that we have dealt with in the US and things as well, but the US is a big beast, and we're not quite there to be able to take that market on yet. So we're just trying to focus on Australia and the UK.
And the new product.
And just like boosting some of the skill sets and stuff we've got internally, and trying to find the right people for those. So we've been on quite a big recruitment hire process for the past few months, and continuing on.
Cool. I mean, are there particular types of talent that you're looking for at the moment that
so we're looking for a lot in the dev kind of space. Front-end engineers and some more senior leadership roles within the development kind of area. as well as salespeople within Australia and the UK, other kind of roles. We've just hired a UK country manager to be able to help us grow that market. So yeah, like just really trying to boost those overseas markets. That's where the growth is going to come for us.
Cool, awesome. And for anyone interested, are those listed on your website or? Yeah,
so we've got a career partner website that people can go to and have a look at. Yeah, so I think the majority of them are on there.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, awesome. We've got a question come through from Anonymous. With COVID and change in workplaces with more people working from home, what impact are you expecting on sales forecasts?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't think that the end of the office is kind of there, but I think like what we've sort of seen is that offices have changed in terms of their design and layout going forward. Like people are not just going to be sitting at a row of workstations working away, which is kind of really kind of suits us in that we can be quite adaptive and quite changing in the where our products kind of go. And if there's more collaborative kind of spaces, you know, we've got the ability to be able to adapt as the office kind of adapts. I think like there will be maybe some downsizing of offices, but people will spend more money per square meter on that office, if that kind of makes sense. So that's kind of like the few trends we've kind of seen.
I mean, yeah. Frozen? We good?
In the chat.
Sorry, did we just freeze there, did we?
Yeah, I don't know if it was me or you. Oh, we're back. Okay, cool. Sorry, I think we might have missed that last bit that you were just saying.
Oh, I was just saying, like, yeah, like that we're actually finding like that people are spending more money per square meter for their kind of offices.
Okay, good. Yeah, awesome. And we've got a question in the chat box. Curious to know if non-business products are on the horizon, and is this a market that you've researched for viability? I'm guessing that means like in
home use,
yeah.
So we're quite focused on the business kind of world. We do have a 20-litre bin, which will be quite suited, I think, for home offices and that kind of places. So you're welcome to jump on our website and buy one of those if you want to. But yeah, no, I think we are a more focused on the business kind of market, just that it kind of suits us in terms of going after enterprise kind of customers versus going into retail and things, even though we've got some bins and
airports and
more retail spaces like more Wilson's and stuff. You can buy our product, but majority of it is more, it's designed for
we wanted kind of a narrow market, but to go quite deep into it. And for us, we thought it was much easier to make, one large sale to a customer than sell 2 bins to every household. So when we started, we were quite commercially focused, and that was where we saw the gap in the market compared to residential. But never say never, but I don't think it's on the short-term horizon.
Yeah, cool. That's cool. I mean, it's good to kind of choose a niche and do that niche really, really well. So I can see why it's good to focus on the commercial side of the business for now. But yeah, who knows what the future holds? I mean, I can definitely picture them, in households, teaching kids, what goes where. So potentially something.
Yeah, well, as part of our community thing that we do is that we donate a lot of products to kindergartens, like all the. If products come back to us, we don't want to chip them down if we don't need to. So we would prefer to keep them higher up in the waste hierarchy, and we'll donate to community groups and stuff. And part of our onboarding experience, actually, for new starters, they need to go and actually teach recycling, if it's to a kindergarten or community group or whatever it might be. Because the old saying is, if you can't teach it to a 3-year-old, you can't teach it to anyone. So we literally do that.
Yeah, no, that is super awesome. So we've got a few minutes remaining. If anyone does have any more questions, now is the time to chuck those in there. So last call for questions. As founders going along your journey, what advice would you have to any early stage founders that are just kind of starting off and just kind of looking for insight and any tips or things that you've learned along the way that you think is some good advice, I guess, to give to anyone watching?
Yeah, I think the main thing is around, if you can get mentors and things around you for people that know how to navigate the opportunity that you're endeavoring to go after. Like, the whole thing is like, you don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah.
that's the benefit of those kind of people. They can actually highlight to you the areas that you need to concentrate on, or that might be, risks for you.
Yeah.
So I think having people that can provide that advice is pretty important. And I think the main thing is around when you do start a business, it is going to take a lot of grit and resilience to work through it. I don't want anyone out there to be cracking 6 teeth from stress, but it is going to take a lot of grit and resilience to get a business market. And that's why not everyone can do it. Not everyone, should do it, because it is hard yakka, and just don't underestimate that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's good to, to kind of, I guess, test yourself out in the way and figuring out, is this journey, one that you want to be on? And if not, then that's also fine. You can still, get involved in growing a business, maybe just not as a founder, which is a lot more stressful. But yeah, being a founder, definitely a tough journey. And it is a lot about resilience and being able to bounce back when things go wrong, and it keep on going. So it is, we do admire what you guys have accomplished. It is super cool, and I love what you're doing, just, for New Zealand, and I guess for the planet. Recycling is definitely something we need more of. So I do really admire what you've accomplished so far, and looking forward to this new product. Sounds very exciting, and definitely keen to learn more about that when we can. But otherwise, I think we've come to the end. I realize a lot of our normal audience is probably at SASTA right now. So luckily we have recorded, and we will be posting this up on socials and on territory3.community afterwards. But yeah, big thanks to Steven and India for coming and sharing their story on method recycling so far. And sounds like we might need to check in about a year or two again, and just kind of see where you're at with the new products.
Brilliant.
Great. Thanks so much, Lilia.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It was a pleasure to tell our story.
Awesome. Yeah, and thank you to the audience who have tuned in and for your questions. I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Yeah, we'll tune in too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Later.